I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, President Joe Biden responds to our question about the Tennessee school shooting, what he said about Christians being targeted, trip to the hospital, why Pope Francis is back before doctors, Equal Rights Amendment, how the Democratic plan could affect abortion access across America, war in Ukraine, meet an inspiring mother who was called to adoption, and learn why Russia is no longer sharing nuclear information with the U.S. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. We begin tonight with a developing story. Pope Francis has been hospitalized in Rome. What started out as a planned exam turned into an overnight stay. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Thonhauser brings us the latest.
We're here in front of the Gemelli Clinic in Rome, where Pope Francis was brought to earlier today. The Holy See spokesperson Matteo Bruni said in the afternoon that the Holy Father has gone to the Gemelli Hospital for some previously scheduled checkups. This would be nothing out of the ordinary. However, Pope Francis was brought to the hospital in an ambulance directly after the general audience, which he usually holds on Wednesdays on St. Peter's Square. And now in the most recent statement of the Holy See press office, Pope Francis was said to suffer from a respiratory infection. However, tests have excluded COVID-19. Now, while checkups usually would take a few hours, Pope Francis has still not returned to the Vatican. He was hospitalized on the 10th floor here at Gemelli. Also, according to Italian media sources, all appointments for tomorrow and for Friday were canceled. As we know, he has been traveling extensively over the last few months, with Africa as his latest travel destination. EWTN will keep you strictly updated on the facts we are learning. However, I think it's always good to offer a prayer for our Holy Father and those assisting him in this very moment. In Rome, Andreas Thonhauser, EWTN News Nightly.
And we are indeed praying for the Holy Father. Well, back in Washington, President Joe Biden responds to our questions about the school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. We spoke with the president last night as he returned from a speech in North Carolina. The short exchange has drawn strong reaction on social media. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, it was Monday when a transgender killer shot to death 6 people, including 3 young kids and 3 adults at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, one U.S. lawmaker wants it investigated as a hate crime, saying Christians were targeted. And last night, I spoke with President Joe Biden just for a brief moment at the South Lawn of the White House. Here's that exchange.
Sir, do you believe that Christians were targeted in the Nashville school shooting? Do you believe that Christians were targeted?
I have no idea.
Josh Hawley believes they were. What do you say to that?
Well, I probably don't then.
Probably don't then.
I'm joking. No, I have no idea.
U.S. Senator Josh Hawley, in a letter to the FBI and Homeland Security, wrote, "Federal law explicitly criminalizes acts of violence against individuals based on religious affiliation as hate crimes," adding, "I urge you to immediately open an investigation into this shooting as a federal hate crime." Meanwhile, in the press briefing room today,
the First Lady will travel to Nashville, Tennessee, to join a candlelight vigil this evening to honor and mourn the lives of the victims of the Covenant School shooting.
Also today, President Biden kicks off his second Summit for Democracy with a pledge for the U.S. to spend $690 million bolstering democracy programs worldwide. Some 120 global leaders invited to participate.
This is a turning point for our world toward greater freedom, greater dignity, and greater democracy.
President Biden also sat down today with President Alberto Fernandez of Argentina, who took part in the summit. Argentina is being hammered by a soaring inflation rate as it tries to renegotiate the country's $44 billion lending program with the International Monetary Fund.
Together we're working to protect human rights and ensure democracy delivers for all of our people.
President Biden started his speech today at that summit apologizing for the slight cold he says he has. That's why his voice was hoarse. He went on to say that democracy can still do big things and deliver important progress for working Americans. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, the Equal Rights Amendment is back in the news this week. House Democrats gathered to announce that they have formed a new ERA caucus to formally make the Equal Rights Amendment part of the U.S. Constitution. But Republicans say it's not needed because everyone is already protected under the law. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has more.
The Equal Rights Amendment Caucus is headed by Democratic Congresswomen Cori Bush and Ayanna Pressley. Both say that they're determined to get the Equal Rights Amendment added as the 28th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. They add that it's time that Congress make gender equality, pay equality, and what they are calling reproductive rights national priorities.
It is time that Congress centers the people who stand to benefit the most from gender equality. We're talking about and including Black and brown women, the LGBTQ plus community, people seeking abortion care, and other marginalized groups.
Senate Pro-Life Caucus Chair Cindy Hyde-Smith tells me it's not needed. Women are already protected by the 14th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, and passing the ERA would open the door to unrestricted abortions. She and Senator John Kennedy have introduced a resolution to stop the ERA from being added. They say it would be illegal. Senator Kennedy states, quote, "The deadline for states to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment has long passed and was rightfully rejected." Emma Waters with the Heritage Foundation says the ERA would be harmful to women and encourage lawsuits.
What the Equal Rights Amendment actually does, though, is take away key protections for women when it comes to their ability to compete in sports or even sex-specific spaces like locker rooms, bathrooms, and prisons.
So I asked Democrats.
I've interviewed a number of Republicans about this, your critics, who basically say that this could open up unlimited abortion access and also bring lawsuits against churches and other religious organizations. What would you want to tell them?
Honestly, I would say that, first of all, it's very customary in Congress that we will lead on policies that even our critics stand to benefit from. And I'm certain that the women in their lives have experienced the disparate access and inequities and injustices that we enumerated here today.
As you heard, Congresswoman Pressley really didn't answer my question. Senate Democrats have also introduced a similar version. They are optimistic that they can get it through the Senate. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
A senior Russian diplomat says Moscow has suspended sharing information about its nuclear forces with the United States, including notices about missile testing. This comes after the Eastern European country left the final nuclear arms pact with the White House. Officials say Russia's military has deployed mobile launchers in Siberia as a show of their nuclear capability. Iran's head of diplomacy traveled to Moscow to meet with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov today. He said the Kremlin values Iran's stance with Russian President Putin. Both Ukraine and the U.S. accuse Iran of sending kamikaze drones against residential zones in Ukraine. Well, the Vatican has sent a substantial amount of medicine to the victims of the earthquake that devastated Turkey in early February, taking almost 50,000 lives. The dicastery for the service of charity purchased thousands of medicinal pallets to send to Turkish citizens, including many who lost their homes. The packets include canned food and thermal shirts, among other necessities. Back here in the United States, as the Nashville community mourns the loss of 6 of their own tonight, police are uncovering more details about the school shooter. They say 28-year-old Audrey Hale had an emotional disorder and pre-planned the attack. Hale, a biological woman who identified as a transgender man, killed 3 adults and 3 children Monday in an ambush at a private Christian school. And joining us tonight to discuss this is Mike Davis, founder and president of the Article 3 Project. Mike, always great to be with you. This is just an unspeakable tragedy. And of course, our prayers and thoughts go out to the families and victims and the Nashville community. As you know, Senator Josh Hawley is calling for authorities to investigate this shooting as a hate crime since the target was a Christian school. And as we heard from our own Owen Jensen, he asked President Biden about it. And he basically said if Josh Hawley thinks Christians were targeted, then he probably doesn't. And then the president laughed and said he was joking and he didn't know the answer. Mike, I'd like to get your thoughts on all this.
Well, yeah, number one, this is clearly a hate crime. They're clearly targeting Christian children and Christian churches. And there is a pattern and practice by the Biden Justice Department, Attorney General Merrick Garland and his deputies, Lisa Monaco, Vanita Gupta, and Kristen Clark, to send the full force of the Justice Department after Christians praying outside of abortion clinics, yet ignoring abortion industry activists, firebombing Catholic churches, crisis pregnancy centers, and terrorizing Supreme Court justices and their families in their homes. And so I think that the House Republicans on the Judiciary Committee should use their subpoena power to go after this, because the Democrats control the Senate. And I think that another thing that Biden's doing, he's trying to make this about a gun grab. We have 400 million guns in America, more guns than people. We always have. And we've never had a problem with these mass shootings until Democrats started glorifying instead of treating mental illness in this country. And these people with gender dysphoria have serious mental illness. We need to show compassion. We need to show them love. We need to get them treatment. We should not glorify them and let gender ideology turn them into crazed people who are violently attacking Christians.
Yeah, Mike, I want to talk now about the police response to all this. The Metro Nashville police, arguably really heroes of the week here. They wasted no time doing what needed to be done to save lives. Quite a contrast to what we saw in Uvalde, Texas this summer. What's your take on all this?
I think the Nashville police executed this perfectly. Those cops are heroes. The problem is it took them 14 minutes to go in and kill that monster. And think about how many people did not need to die. Maybe all 6 of those people did not need to die if we had police in every school in America, retired law enforcement, retired military, armed school officials. We need to get serious about this. And what if they would not have executed perfectly? What if they would have showed up in 20 minutes instead of 14 minutes? How many more people would have died? We need to get police and armed officials back in schools.
Mike, we have probably about a minute or so left, but I want to get your take on something. There's a latest Wall Street Journal NORC survey which found that long-held values like religion, patriotism, and community involvement are in decline here in the United States. I'm wondering, what's your reaction to this, especially in light of all these dark headlines that we have been seeing recently?
Well, this is going according to the Democrats' plan. They don't want us to love God, country, and family. They want us to be beholden to the state. This is part of what the Marxist left has been doing for decades. It's working. They're indoctrinating kids in these schools. This needs to change. We need real school choice, so parents have choice to send their kids to the best schools, just like these Democrat politicians do. We need to take back our country from the Marxist left.
Mike, about 20 seconds left. Final thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, it's sick what's happened here. We have gender chaos with Me Too and pronouns. We have racial chaos in this country with BLM. We have the COVIDians. This is not our parents' or grandparents' Democrat Party. These are leftists who are trying to destroy our country, and people need to wake up to what's happening.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Mike, thank you so much for insights. Always great to be with you.
Thank you.
And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including Time's Up. We'll tell you why some clergy of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church were forced to leave their monastery. And full house. A Virginia couple adopts a group of special needs orphans from Ukraine, growing their family to more than a dozen. The heartwarming story next. Today marked the last day for pro-Russian members of the clergy to leave a monastery in Kyiv. The Lavra is home to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, traditionally loyal to Russian Patriarch Kirill, who is a close ally to President Vladimir Putin. Those living in the historic cave have been accused of violating terms after the members were suspected of countering Ukraine's war efforts. The members deny the claims. A Virginia couple has opened their home and their hearts to 5 Ukrainian orphans who joined the couple's 10 other children. Vicki and Ed Greenan say their family of 15 has given them purpose. They have 4 biological children and 6 adopted children with special needs. Nearly 3 years ago, their family grew once again, first with 3 disabled Ukrainian orphans in 2020 and then an additional 2 in 2021. They say they scraped together pennies to make the adoptions happen and left the rest to God. And joining us tonight to share more on their family story is Vicki Greenan. Vicki, great to have you with us. I know you have a full house there full of love and lots of children, and I understand there's also a bit of an age gap between your older children and the ones you adopted from Ukraine. Talk to us about this decision to kind of start over again and add more children to your family.
Well, first of all, we adopted 6 children. We went back the second time and adopted 3 children from Ukraine in 2021. But getting back to your initial question, our son Michael, who is our youngest biological, was midway through high school. The younger children from the first group of adoptions were pretty much getting on their way, whether it's through Job Corps or into group homes. And I had been working with my husband, who went out into business for himself. So I spent 10 years doing that. And I just really felt that at this stage in my life, what did I want to do going forward? And I counseled a good friend, Peter Daly, a priest who I've known for 25 years. And he was the one that really said, you know, you did a great job. Why not? And I gave it a lot of thought and jumped in.
Well, God bless you all, and thank you for doing that. I know several that is, of your children have disabilities, a variety of things from fetal alcohol syndrome to heart defects and more. Of course, challenging for everyone in the family, including you and them. Can you talk to us about how you manage it all and how your faith helps you through it?
Very structured. I'm not going to lie. Every day is full. When my husband had to cover with some of the children while I was at a hospital surgery for one of the other children, it's nonstop. But it has to be very organized. Children need medication. 5 of the 6 children that came home are in wheelchairs, totally dependent on all areas, are 3 of the children. So the faith pretty much is what carries me through, and it's not a theology, it's my interpersonal connection with God. I really feel that I'm doing exactly what it is that he wants me to do, and he gives me moments throughout the day where he reminds me that this is what I'm supposed to do, and it's true, and it resonates with me.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about the children that you adopted from Ukraine. You know, obviously a lot going on over there in the country right now, and you adopted them during a very dangerous time, dark time in the country. I'm curious, do you know what's going on with the orphanage right now, what the status is?
With specific orphanages or the ones that my children came from? I know that the children...
Yeah, the one that that's okay, no, the one that your children came from.
Well, Anya, who was... turned 5. She came from the Mykolaiv region, and her orphanage was hit several months after the aggression by Russia against Ukraine started. The children were removed from there. The children in the other region, the Dnipro region, where the other 5 children came from, have all been removed from there as well, but their orphanage was not hit. It's a very emotional. It's very emotional for me, having been there, seen the people. It's very tough to watch unfold.
Oh, undoubtedly so. And so glad that your children are with you now and safe here in the United States. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it, Vicki, and thank you for what you're doing and how you're helping these children. It's a blessing to talk to you today. God bless you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, starting over, what the Holy Father is saying about becoming a new person, plus helping the least among us. We head to Rome to hear what an international lay association is doing to help the less fortunate and their plans to elect a new president. We are back tonight with a recap of our top story. Pope Francis is hospitalized. He went to the doctor for medical tests and they decided to keep him overnight. Meantime, earlier today, the Holy Father reminded the faithful that it is never too late to start over, and that requires knowing where Jesus is in our lives.
Ma Gesù dove ha incontrato Gesù?
At his weekly talk, the Holy Father focused on St. Paul's conversion, encouraging pilgrims to change their life and become a new creature, as St. Paul did. The Pope also explained that Paul's humanity and passion for God is transformed and converted by the Holy Spirit. Well, the International Association of Charities gathered in Rome to elect a new president. More than 150 delegates from the group, the oldest lay association in the history of volunteerism, discussed the association's most important issues. They focused on topics like the climate and helping the poor. The theme of the meeting was Citizens of the World on the Road United in Hope. Joining us now is Suzanne Johnson, a member of the Executive Board of the International Association of Charities. Suzanne, great to be with you today. Can you tell us more about this assembly in Rome and the election of the new president?
Yes, last week, 150 members of AIC and their spiritual moderators gathered in Frascati, Italy, first time since our gathering in Châtillon, France, which had marked our 400th anniversary of our founding. The attendees were from 42 different countries, 5 different continents. All the members were enthusiastic and energized by this meeting. We were inspired by Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines and Pope Francis. We were educated by Father Gabriel Naranjo Navarro of Colombia, and 13 different women shared projects that they had initiated in their countries to assist those living in poverty. We also planned for the next 3 years. We adopted our priority action lines, which included rooted in Vincentian charism, walking together, and being open to and welcoming the change that is essential to get through crisis situations. We also elected members of the International Executive Board who will serve for the next 3 years.
And Suzanne, I know that you're inspired by the example of St. Vincent de Paul. Can you talk about your history and your mission a little more?
Yes. St. Vincent de Paul founded our organization in 1617. On a Sunday morning, he preached about a family who was living in poverty and had a lot of illness. Many of the women were touched by his preaching and responded by going and taking whatever this family needed. Well, Vincent, later on in the day, walking down there, saw all these women coming back and said, you know, this is wonderful, wonderful, but how will this family survive past this 1 or 2 days? So he said, we need to be organized. Charity, in order to be effective, needs to be organized. So he called the women together and he organized them. He pretty much said, okay, on this day you go, on this day you go, set out the rules for making sure this family was taken care of. So today we have over 100,000 members in 56 countries, serving mostly women and children, working together with other members of the Vincentian family to help those who are disenfranchised, those who are in poverty, those who are trafficked, the homeless, the uneducated, the migrants, and the refugees.
And Suzanne, before I let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add that maybe you think is really important for our viewers to know?
I just want to say that the camaraderie between these women was fabulous. Even though we don't all speak the same language, we all have the same language of love and a sincere desire to serve those who are in poverty.
Yeah, that is so beautiful and so needed. Suzanne, thank you so much for all that you do. We appreciate it. And thank you for speaking with us today. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you.
And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.